past couple of years, you may have seen some of our watch tournaments where you all get to vote on the single best watch for an individual price category. In our most recent take in this series, we shift the concept from looking at a dedicated price to focusing on determining the single best watch for a brand voted on by the watch community. Where do we start? None other than Seiko. So how this worked is we started with a preliminary field of nearly 60 notable Seiko watches, where we asked you all to pick your top 10 Seiko watches from the list. Based on the percentage of top 10 votes received from the thousands that filled out the form, we were then able to determine the seeding for the tournament, with the watches that received the highest percentage of top 10 votes getting the 1 seed, followed in order from there. Normally in these tournaments, we have only 16 watches total. However, there were so many worthy competitors that we expanded this to a 32 watch tournament with an east and west side of the bracket, our largest tournament ever. Just so the field didn't get out of hand, we did not include any limited editions, JDM models, discontinued, or vintage pieces. Just want to clear that up as well. But other than that, everything else that currently operates under the direct Seiko and Seiko Luxe branding was eligible if available to international markets. This also means that King Seiko was able to be selected as the brand is not independent and currently resides under the Seiko Luxe branding. So with an understanding of how this all works now, let's look at the seeds for each side of the bracket. Since there are 32 watches, we are going to be having 2 seeds of each number from 1 to 16 with a number represented on both sides of the bracket, following a traditional tournament or abbreviated March Madness style. Now, a few things before we begin in the description down below. If you are shopping Seiko, you want to see some of the watches in the tournament and understand what we were looking at here, we'll have a complete collection of many of the watches in this tournament, some also that just missed the cut as well. We'll also have further reading for some of the articles by our team down below. One of those in question is the Seiko SKX, a look at the legacy of that model through a long-term ownership review by Milton of our team. Bernardo from our editorial squad also looks recently at the discontinued Arnie. Yes, that watch was discontinued, and its impact on Seiko dive watch history and how it came to be the icon that it is. And then also a closer look at the Seiko Metronome and how it works by Bilal.khan. All of these will be in the description down below. Definitely go check them out. So now we're gonna go seed by seed, east and west, and go through what we're gonna be looking at for the field of 32. Let's start off with the 16 seeds on the east side bracket. We have the Sharp Edge GMT, the SPB 217. This received 13.4% of top 10 votes. Then moving to the west side of the bracket, that previously mentioned Seiko Arnie SNJ 025. Now I mentioned we're not gonna have any discontinued models, but this is a fresh discontinuation. So when we first started this bracket, this was not a discontinued watch. So that is why it made the cut. We didn't think that we wanted to remove it because that would totally disrupt the results of this entire tournament. So it is still going to be here. It received 13.6% of top 10 votes. Moving to the 15 seeds, we have on the east side of the bracket, the Astron SSJ013 receiving 15.4% of the votes. And then 15 seed on the west side, we have the Willard, the SPB 153 receiving 15.7% of top 10 votes. That is 3 Seiko Luxe models so far for the first 4 watches presented in this tournament. Moving to the 14 seeds, on the east side of the bracket, we have the Prospex SPB 317, 16.5%, and then the 14 seed on the west side, the King Seiko KS 1969, 17.6% of top 10 votes. 13 seed here, we have the Dress KX from the Seiko 5 family, the SRPE 53 at 18.1% of top 10 votes. Surprised to see how far down this one is because of how well this watch sells and how many people love it, but sitting at the 13 seed in the east side bracket. On the west side bracket, it is going to be the Seiko 5 as well, but the Pilot SRPH 29, 18.5% of top 10 votes. Now the 12 seeds, the east side bracket has the Seiko 5 SNX models, or more formally known now as the SRPK 89. That's the specific model we have representing the collection. 18.6% here. This is the 2024 update to the SNXS family. And then on the 12 seed in the west side, we have the Presage Style 60s. This is the external bezel, kind of dive looking style Presage, receiving 18.8% of top 10 votes. For the 11 seeds on both sides of the bracket, we have speed timers. And for the speed timers, we did want to include the Pogue as its own identity and option for this tournament because it is very different compared to many of the other speed timers out there and has history to go along with it. And that's gonna be the 11th seed on the east side bracket. This is the SSC 947, 21.3% of top 10 votes. And then on the 11th seed on the other side of the bracket, the 41 millimeter standard speed timer, the SSC 911, 21.6% of top 10 votes. For the 10 seed, we have the Samurai 2024 edition. This is the SRPL 11, 21.7% of top 10 votes. Moving to the west, the Seiko 5KX, the SRPD 55. This was the revived Seiko 5 Sports design that came in 2019, really taking a lot of that inspiration of the case silhouette from the SKX, receiving 22.5% of top 10 votes. 9 seeds, we see King Seiko again with the KSK SJE 091 on the east side of the bracket, 23.2% of top 10 votes. And then also on the west side, we have another Seiko Lux model with the Porcelain SPB 319, receiving 23.5% of top 10 votes. Now we shift back to the prospects family for our 8 seeds. One is the standards trusty Seiko Turtle, the SRPE 93, 23.8%. And then on the east side, we have the 1968 GMT, the SPB 381, 24.2% of top 10 votes. On the west side bracket for the 7 seed, we have the Sharp Edge, the 3-hand model, the SPB 167 at 25.5% of top 10 votes. And then on the east side, the Presage Classic, the SPB 465, 26.2%. Chugging right along to the 6 seeds on the west side, the Marine Master SJE 101, 27.5% of top 10 votes. The east side, the 3 Days 1965 SPB 451, receiving 27.6% of top 10 votes. The 5 seeds are going to be represented by cocktail times on both the west and east side. On the west, the cocktail time 38.5 millimeter SRPE 41. This is the Negroni dial, 30.2% of top 10 votes. And then on the east side of the bracket, the cocktail time GMT, the SSK 037, 30.6% of top 10 votes. 4 seeds, the Craftsmanship Series for the SPB 495 sits in the west position with 31.5% of top 10 votes. And then on the east side bracket, the cocktail time again, but this is the more traditional size, the 40.5 millimeter SRPB 43, receiving 35.6% of top 10 votes. Now for our top 6 seeds, we'll move to the 3 seeds. On the west side, the Baby Alpinist SPB 155 receiving 39.4% of top 10 votes. The east side is gonna have a Seiko 5, the SSK 023, another field genre, but the GMT 41.9% of top 10 votes. Now for the final 4, starting with our 2 seeds, we have the west side of the bracket being represented at the 2 seed position by the 1965 Heritage, the SPB 143 at 45.3% of top 10 votes. Then on the east side, the SSK GMTs from the Seiko 5 collection. This is the 003, receiving 52.9% of top 10 votes. And then for our top 2 seeds, the 1 seeds for both sides of the bracket. On the west side, we have the Speed Timer 39mm, the SSC 813, 65% of top 10 votes. This was the 8th seed in the under 1K tournament and is going to be 3 Speed Timers in the tournament in the final field of 32. And then on the east side of the bracket, we have the Alpinist SPB 121 being the number 1 outright seed in the tournament, 69.3% in top 10 votes. This was the 2nd seed in the under 1K tournament. It came in with 59.6% of top 10 votes in that tournament. So seeing more of an edge here and definitively as a leader in that number 1 seed position. Before we start looking at the matchups for round 1, let's look at the watches that just missed the cut. At the 35th position, we have the Prospex Marine Master SLA 021, 12.4% of top 10 votes. 34th position, the Prospex LX SNR 029. This is the elevated 6K plus spring drive powered Seiko watches. This had 12.7% of top 10 votes. And just missing the cut at the 33rd position, you have the King Turtle SRPE 05, 12.7% of top 10 votes. Now looking at these 32 seeds, the top 2 were definitive, with there being a 20% gap from the low 1 seed to the low 2 seed. And despite Seiko being known for models like the Seiko 5 and products under $1,000, the higher tiered Seiko Lux products did show up, with a total of 12 watches of the 32 being above $1,000 in retail price. 6 Seiko 5 sports models made it to the round of 32 with 8 different sub-collections in the initial form, so you had a 75% placement rate for the Seiko 5s in this tournament. The Prospects had the largest number of watches of any collection in the tournament with 14, with the Presage making up the second most of any collection with 9, and King Seiko put 2 watches on the board, and the Astron delivered 1 single watch. So now we start with round 1. This is gonna be the most jam-packed round 1 of any tournament that we've had thus far. 16 matchups total, so let's get it started. First up, the 1 seed versus the 16 seed in the east side bracket. The Prospects Alpinist SPB 121 versus the Presage Sharp Edge GMT, and the Alpinist easily goes on forward with 76% of the vote. Matchup 1 on the west side bracket, the number 1 seed SSC 813 versus the Prospects Arnie, and the Arnie is gonna be discontinued from this tournament just like it was from the collection, only receiving 13% of the vote. 87% goes to the SSC 813. The 2 versus 15 matchup on the east side, we have the Seiko 5 Sports SSK 003 receiving 73% of the vote compared to the Astron GPS Solar SSJ 013. Astron goes home, only Astron in the tournament, couldn't make it out of the first round. Same matchup on the west side, you have the Prospects Heritage 1965 SPB 143 versus the Willard. 2 watches of similar theme and style, watches that are dive watch fanatics' dreams on the wrist, but the Willard not close, only getting 18% of the vote. The SPB 143 moves on. Matchup 3 on the east side, you have the Seiko 5 Sports Field SSK 023 versus the SPB 317 at the 14 seed. And the 3 seed moves on with 59%, a little closer for comfort here for a 3 versus 14 seed. On the west side matchup, not the same story here. 73% of the vote goes to the 3 seed, the Baby Alpinist, knocking out one of the King Seikos, the KS 1969. Matchup 4 on the east side bracket, we have the Presage Cocktail Time SRPB 43 versus the 13 seed, the Dress KX. Dress KX only getting 23% of the vote. People prefer to go for the Cocktail Time 77% of the time. And then on the west side, the 4 seed moves on as well, getting 64% of the vote. This is the Craftsmanship SPB 495 and the Seiko 5 Sports Pilot going home with only 36% of the vote. The 5 versus 12 matchup in the east side bracket, the Cocktail Time GMT moves on with 69% of the vote versus the Seiko 5 Sports SNXS receiving 31% of the vote. The 5 and 12 matchup is not going to have any upsets here on the west side either. The Presage Cocktail Time 38.5mm moves on 70% of the vote, even a larger margin of victory here. Presage Style 60s is going to be going home with only 30% of the vote. Matchup 6, you have the Prospects 3-Day 1965 SPB 451 versus the 11 seed Speed Timer Pogue. Now the Pogue, this could be something where I could see it maybe upsetting here. So many people like the Pogue, quirky design, but the Pogue not gonna have enough to move on. Only 38% of the vote. The Prospects 3-Day 1965 moves on to the next round. 6 seed versus 11 seed west side bracket, Prospects Marine Master SJE 101 versus the Speed Timer 41mm SSC 911. This one was pretty close, not even 10 percentage points away from one another, 8 to be exact. The Prospects Marine Master does edge out the 11 seed just barely, 56% of the vote. Now matchup 7, the 7 versus 10 seed, and the 10 seed actually moving out ahead. So we have an upset here. The Presage Classic is gonna be going home, only getting 49% of the vote versus the 51% that goes with the Samurai 2024 edition. So we have an upset in this round. Moving along to the west side bracket, you have the Presage Sharp Edge SPB 167 versus the 10 seed Seiko 5KX. And the 5KX is gonna be going home with only 37% of the vote. Sharp Edge moves on, so going to be avenging the GMT and having it be represented in the next round. Now the 8 seed versus the 9 seed on the east side bracket, and the Heritage 1968 GMT versus the King Seiko KSK Modern Reinterpretation. This one was really tight. This was actually the tightest matchup of this entire round, 100 votes separating them. The 9 seed though, moving on. Another little mini upset here, but this was more of a pick'em. King Seiko has one survivor going to round 2. On the west side bracket, 8 versus 9 seed. Can we see the 9 seed pull it off again? On the 8 seed, you have the Turtle SRPE 93. On the 9 seed, you have the Presage Craftsmanship Porcelain SPB 319, and the 9 seed again, moving ahead. 63% of the vote going to the 9 seed, and the Turtle goes home in round number 1. Very surprising there. So through round one, here is the lay of the land here for matchups. You have 1 King Seiko, 7 Prospects models, only 2 Seiko 5s make it to the round of 16. Very strange, would never have guessed that at the initial start of this tournament. And then 6 Presage models. Presage doing some damage in round one, 2/3 of the Presage advanced to round 2, so they had a great showing. Prospect still remains as a leader with 7 watches still in the tournament, but they did see the field get narrowed down quite a bit. So let's move ahead to round number 2. Matchup 1 in the East, you have the Alpinist SPB 121, the 1 seed versus the King Seiko. King Seiko, can you move on? 9 seed, and the King Seiko is going home, receiving 31% of the vote. Alpinist moves on, no more King Seikos in the tournament. Matchup 1 in the West, we have the Prospect Speed Timer 39mm versus the 9 seed Presage Craftsmanship. The 9 seeds were doing a lot of work last round, but unfortunately the story ends here for both of these watches. The 1 seed moves on, the SSC 813, 69% of the vote. Matchup 2 on the East side bracket, you have the Seiko 5 Sports GMT SSK 003 versus the 10 seed Prospect Samurai. Samurai also had an upset in the last rounds. They had 3 upsets so far that have already appeared in the round 2, but the upset run for these watches is going to end here. The 2 seed SSK GMT moving on to round number 3. On the West side bracket, you have the 2 seed versus the 7 seed Heritage 1965 SPB 143 versus the Sharp Edge, and the Sharp Edge is going home, 36% of the vote going there, and 64% goes to the SPB 143. Matchup 3 in the East, you have at the 3 seed the Seiko 5 Sports Field GMT SSK 023 versus the 6 seed, the Prospect 3-Day. And we have another upset here. Now in round 2, the 6 seed moves on and knocking off another Seiko 5. The Seiko 5 Sports GMT in the field genre, gone. 3-Day moves on, 6 seed, going ahead, 57% of the vote. Matchup 3 in the West side bracket, you have the 3 seed Baby Alpinist versus the Prospects Marine Master. Who's gonna win out? This one was close too. 54% goes to the higher seed, but the Marine Master was right on the toes of the Baby Alpinist, trying to knock it out, getting 46% of the vote. But nevertheless, 3 seed moves on, Baby Alpinist lives to see another day. Matchup 4 in the East, the Presage Cocktail Time SRPB 43 versus the Presage Cocktail Time GMT. So we have Presage Cocktail Time versus Presage Cocktail Time. Who's gonna win it out? And easily, the Cocktail Time's traditional 3-hand wins out, 66% of the vote. This is the 3rd largest win of the round despite the closest seeding. Matchup 4 in the West, going to be a closer matchup though. More traditional compared to the seeding and position. The Presage Craftsmanship SPB 495 just edges out the Presage Cocktail Time 38.5mm, getting 44% of the vote there. High seed wins out, 56% of the vote. Looking at the recap of round 2, Prospects continues to thrive here, now having 5 total models making up the final 8, and then 2 Presage remain, so a tougher round for the Presage models. Only 1 Seiko 5 remains in this tournament. That is crazy to think about. So these are your 3 different collections representing the top 8 Seikos in this tournament. So let's move forward to round number 3. Matchup 1, you have the Alpinist SPB 121 versus the 4 seed Presage Cocktail Time SRPB 43, and the Alpinist moves on again, 67% of the vote. No issue so far for the 1 seed in the East. In the West, can the same story remain? 1 seed versus 4 seed, and the Speed Timer is also going to move on, knocking out the Craftsmanship SPB 495 with 64% of the vote going to the SSC 813. Matchup 2 in the East, we have a 2 seed versus a 6 seed here. The 2 seed is going to be the Seiko 5 Sports GMT SSK 003, fan favorite, versus the 6 seed, the Prospects 3-Day that just came off of a nice upset in the previous round. Can it continue with another upset versus a powerhouse in this tournament, the Seiko 5 Sports GMT? And the answer is yes. The 6 seed moves on, 52% of the vote. We have the final 4 showing for the 3-Day 1965 SPB 451. Wild run for this 6 seed here. Matchup 2 in the West, we now have the 2 seed Heritage 1965 SPB 143 versus the Baby Alpinist, and this one was tight. 2 versus 3 seed, but the Baby Alpinist just losing out, getting 49% of the vote compared to the SPB 143's 51%. So now there are just 4 watches in the tournament. Started with 32, down to our final 4. In the first matchup in the East side bracket, we have the Prospects Alpinist SPB 121 versus the 6 seed, the star of the show for this tournament, the Cinderella story, 6 seed, Prospects 3-Day 1965. 6 seed, can it continue? Can it knock off the outright #1 seed in the tournament, 6 versus 1 seed? The 1 seed continues on. The Alpinist ends the Cinderella run with 62% of the vote. Closest margin of victory so far though for the Alpinist. So the 6 seed did give him a good run for the money, almost getting 40% of the vote. And then the West Side tournament, you have the 1 seed versus the 2 seed. So this one was more of a traditional play out of this side of the bracket. And the 1 seed of the SSC 813 wins out with 59% of the vote in the Heritage 1965 SPB 143, heading home with only 41% of the vote. And then there were 2. We have our championship round, 1 seed versus 1 seed. And what's really interesting is we don't show any of the seeding when we do any of these competitions. So this is solely based off of just looking at the watches and determining which one people favor. So this is not like seeing the 1 seed here versus the 1 seed here. This is just how it played out. So the form and ultimately what people decided with each individual matchup got us to a 1 versus 1 to determine what is the single favorite and best watch from Seiko. So we have a 1 versus 1. Now we gotta determine what is the #1 Seiko watch determined by the watch community. On the East Side bracket, the winner there was the Prospex Alpinist SPB 121. And then representing the West Side, you have the Prospex Speed Timer 39mm. So 1 versus 1 seed, powerhouse versus powerhouse. These are some of the best selling watches under $1,000. What is going to win? Prospex Alpinist, Prospex Speed Timer, and the winner of the Seiko watch tournament is the Prospex Alpinist SPB 121, getting 54% of the vote versus the SSC 813's 46%. Really tight matchup. No surprise in the winner though, but a crazy winner at that. The Alpinist, a very strange looking watch, but people absolutely love the Alpinist and what it represents for under $1,000. I don't have any issue with what the community has voted on here with picking the Alpinist as the outright winner. But do you agree with the results? Leave some comments down below. And did you like this style of tournament? Did you like shifting away from looking at a specific price tier and looking at an individual brand? If you did, let us know in the comments down below what brand you would like us to have a tournament with next. Also, if you enjoyed this style of video, you want us to do more of these videos in the future, any encouragement with thumbs up is a great indicator because these are a ton of work to put together. We have to plan for almost a month to get this all into motion. So this is like a month of planning just to get one of these tournaments completed. So any encouragement to show that this is actually worth doing all of this, greatly appreciated. And I'd love to see any comments where you guys are digging this because that is helpful for me to know if it's actually worth going through all this trouble to set up this tournament, set up the initial field and all of that. So thank you for that. Also, definitely check out teddybaldershot.com. Every purchase from teddybaldershot.com comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. In addition to that, if you are in the market for a watch, how we're able to continue to do what we do on this channel is through selling watches. So if you are in the market, we'd absolutely love to have your business because it allows us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we absolutely love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.